is that Candace Owens has been named Anti-Semite of the Year by Stop Anti-Semitism. Poisonous hater, as she is called. It certainly takes a lot to garner this award, and Candace, in her very tongue-in-cheek approach to dry humor, has said, I'm going to have to come up with a speech to accept this award. No surprise. But as it is stated, firebrand pundit Candace Owens has been named Anti-Semite of the Year by watchdog Stop Anti-Semitism. For those of you who have no idea who Stop Anti-Semitism is, trust me, you really don't want to know who they are. They are merely a front person for the Israeli lobby. That is all that they do. Everyone who doesn't go along with what Israel is doing right now is an anti-Semite in their eyes. Certainly with somebody like Candace Owens, who has the platform that she has, this is not going over very well. And there's a reason why they did this, but we'll get to that in a minute. Which says, blew the competition away with more votes than anyone in previous years. Candace Owens' witch's brew of anti-Semitism drew from vile medieval blood libels, including claims that Jews drink Christian blood, conspiracies that Jews are pedophiles who control the media and are taking over America. I'll let you all form your opinions on these points. And modern toxic anti-Israel hysteria. Stop Anti-Semitism's founder, Leora Rez, told the Post. Guys, if anybody would like to look up Leora Rez and fill me in, because I had no idea who that person was, and very much so, free Palestine. Thank you, David. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend, however begrudgingly that it may be. I've been on record as saying that there are a lot of takes that Candace has that I do not agree with. And it's obvious that there are probably not too many crossover points, but certainly with this populism, there is. And so one of the things that is of note has been how vocal she has been when it comes to, as I alluded to earlier, two of the particular leaders, if you will, at the Daily Wire, of course, Ben Shapiro and also Dave Rubin. Two men who are Jewish and have been very outspoken in their support of Israel and what they are doing to Palestine. Now, for Candace, this was a non-starter, and she simply would not accept it. So she spoke up very defiantly in many ways, and ultimately it did cost her position at the Daily Wire, which was a very well-paid position, I might add. Now, she's gone out on her own, and she's certainly doing well for herself, no two ways about it, but it's still a risk nonetheless in terms of your brand. What sparked her to go down this road, I can't say for certain. But remember, when you get to that level, there's a lot of things that people like Candace are exposed to that we're not. So there's no telling what those Daily Wire meetings may have been about. There's no telling what type of things that she may have heard or were being said. I believe that Candace has her flaws, deep flaws in many respects, but I also believe that she does have these sort of core principles that I believe that she believes in, even if I don't agree with them. Yes, Holly, that is exactly what it is. And for those of you that are here, if you haven't smashed the like button, please make sure that you do. Try to get back into the thick of running on these Sunday nights where there are too many people going live at this time, but it's convenient for me to do this. This is the one night of the week where I do have some downtime that I feel it makes sense to do it. And so if you are not currently a supporter at patreon.com, make sure you get over there for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. But most importantly, make sure that you smash the like button and make sure that you get this out there to as many people as you can. It is certainly appreciated. Any effort that you make to help us is certainly going to be appreciated. So we had our esteemed colleague, Colin Tooley, put together a clip from Candace's interview the other night. This is what prompted Stop Anti-Semitism to name her Anti-Semite of the Year. But this was a very, very telling story. So for those of you who are not too familiar with the USS Liberty and what that has meant regarding the protection of the state of Israel, going back to the year 1967, which in many ways was the inflection point when it came to the state of Israel. I'm going to pull this up now, and here's what happened during Candace's interview.
We're doing exactly what they were doing. When they overflew us, they took the pictures of all the ship. They knew exactly what to hit and when to hit it. And I might add, I believe, and I think most of my shipmates believe, that this attack was planned a year in advance.
A year in advance?
Yes.
What makes you say that?
Well, there was another spy ship in the area, USS or the SS Valdez. It was a civilian manned ship, but it was owned by the Navy. It could have done the same thing that we were doing, but they took them out of the area. Sinking the USS Liberty is a hell of a lot sexier than sinking the Valdez.
Why is that?
Well, it's all American sailors and Marines. They wanted us at the bottom, and so they could blame it on the Arab states and bring us into World War III.
That is one of the key talking points that has been floated, but as has been pointed out many a times, a lot of American soldiers have been threatened, especially those who were crew members of the USS Liberty at the time that it was attacked by Israel. And one of the thought processes, much like the war in Vietnam, which had been going on pretty much following the conclusion, as I would put it, of JFK's assassination. And 4 days after the assassination, LBJ had officially committed an arsenal of troops to Southeast Asia. And so we ultimately knew that this is what was going to transpire as a result. The war in Vietnam would officially kick into high gear from the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Well, the USS Liberty is a very similar incident that took place just 2 years after. Gulf of Tonkin was I want to say, guys, fill me in. I believe the Gulf of Tonkin incident happened at the beginning of 1965. I'm pretty sure that was around the time that it happened. And so a couple of years later, we're looking back, and now this circumstance, which never gets talked about, I mean, never gets talked about. I was not aware of this, and I'm a student of history. But I, for whatever reason, did not know the full detail of this story regarding Israel attacking the USS Liberty, which my understanding on the surface was that it was done to try to draw the United States into a Middle Eastern war to ensure the entire takeover of the state of Israel or the entire state of Palestine by Israel, or create the greater Israel. So this has been in the works for the better part of 2 generations, seeping into a third now. And that's why this story needs to be told. Because while I don't think we'll ever know the full breadth of what happened on October 7th, 2023, there is reason to believe that even if Israel did not orchestrate the attack, much like 9/11 on our soil, it was allowed to happen for the political and economic benefit that would come as a result. We'll continue.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Now, it's the morning of the 8th, and you like you said, on the 7th, they took pictures, they positively identified you, you were able to hear this over the radio. Did they still have at that moment the CIA agents on board?
Yes, yes.
The NSA agents were on board, so you still got the exact same amount of people that are on board here.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about a pretty big sacrifice they were willing to make.
Right.
Total number of people?
294 souls.
294 souls, okay. Attacking jet aircraft destroyed all but 3 of our life rafts, which we had put overboard. We were going to place our most seriously wounded in them so that they would have a chance at life. But the IDF would have none of that. They shot 2 of them out of the water and took 1 aboard their boats as a trophy of the kill. They continued shooting and killing my mates. They left and we thought that it was over, but it wasn't. IDF helicopters were sent with troops armed and ready to board our ship and finish us off. Then they just left. I guess the gig was up when the mighty IDF could not sink our defenseless ship. When it was all done, there were over 821 rocket and cannon holes and over 5,000 armor-piercing bullets riddling the ship. Napalm was burning us up, and a 40 by 40-foot torpedo hole was in her side, causing the ship to list badly to our starboard side. We then waited 17 hours for help. I guess they hoped that we would sink that night. Help was only 40 minutes away from us, but they left us out alone to die. When the USS America and the USS Davis arrived to help us, they took our wounded to care for them. Their wounds were so horrific, words cannot explain. Admiral Kidd boarded our ship a few days later, and the cover-up immediately began.
One of the most important aspects of this cover-up is the role that LBJ played in that cover-up. Knowing full well that it was irrefutable that this was a deliberate attack by Israel on the United States, unlike the Gulf of Tonkin, mind you. But this was a deliberate attempt to sink the USS Liberty and blame it either on Egypt, on Iran, on Jordan, etc. And LBJ would have none of it. He went to bat for Israel on the backdrop of the second, or what would be the Six-Day War, I believe, in 1967. So a lot of what was allowed to happen, a lot of what was allowed to transpire, was a result of the inaction of the U.S. State Department, led at the very top by President Johnson. And all in the name of protecting what RFK has called our aircraft carrier in the Middle East. Because that's what it is. I'm not really sure religion has anything to do with this. I think this is all about money and power, like I pontificate that every aspect of politics is about anyway. But this was as deliberate as it gets. And this is a story that has been swept under the rug for almost 60 years.
We were ordered to never speak of the attack to anyone, not even with one another. Penalties would be fines, imprisonment, or worse, and we all knew that worse meant death. We have been treated like garbage for the last 57 years. Congress has been bought and paid for, with the exception, over the years, of a few brave lawmakers. Their names are Representatives Pete McCloskey, Paul Findley, and Jim Traficant. As the courageous Rep. Thomas Massey has noted, all Republican members of Congress except for him have AIPAC handlers. We can assume this is also true of nearly all Democrats. We are the most decorated ship in naval history for a single engagement. I believe God saved us that day to allow us to communicate the truth of this attack to leaders like you. We give all power to Jesus Christ. We are just his servants that horrible day and now. The USS Liberty survivors are the biggest whistleblowers this country has ever seen. We have been smeared as anti-Semitic, Jew haters, and Nazis. Our only sin is that we survived.
Very powerful statement. And I am not going to turn this into a holy war because I have no interest in that. I think you guys all know my opinion on religion. I have an affinity for the prospect that there is the possibility of God. But organized religion, it's all bullshit. And so it's been used as a weapon for a very long time. It will continue to be used as a weapon so long as people are allowing it to be used as one. But I do believe stories like this expose the very fragile platform that the state of Israel sits on right now. And while the genocide of the Palestinian people continues, the expansion into Syria is insane on its surface. But this sort of prospect of a greater Israel that they believe is possible is something that they've been seeking for a very long time. They were seeking it then. They didn't get it. Maybe that was the great compromise. Who knows? We will not engage in this regional war in the Middle East. How could they? They were in Vietnam at that point. But at the same time, by not doing so, they kept quiet. And so here we are today in a very similar situation where we needed real leadership to avoid this expansion of the Israel state, and it's not happening. We are allowing it to happen in the worst way. And that is the real danger. So I applaud Candace Owens for giving this story breath and life, which I think it desperately needs. And we're doing the same, even though our channel obviously is small but mighty. This is a testament to the fact that when you look at the MAGA movement in this country, a significant portion of them are true right populists, libertarian populists. They do not believe in endless war. In fact, they detest it as much as the populist left does. And they're not buying in to the support of Israel, which is why, as I've stated, there's a difference between the conservative right and the populist right. And that war, if you will, that political war, is happening right now in real time. Because if you can dismantle Israel, you can knock off anything.